for bringing me back. It's been fun to be back and to walk around and visit with people again. And today what I'm going to talk about, yesterday evening I talked about my individual research project on Plečnik and art history, architectural history, and religious history in Central Europe. Today I'm going to speak about a larger collaborative project I've been involved in on the history of the Christian churches in 20th century Eastern Europe. And my discussion of that project will be framed by discussion of my own work on the religious history of the Czech lands. And I'll start with an anecdote from my own research. When I was in Prague 3 years ago to do research, I met a Czech scholar, and he asked me what I was there to do, and I told him that I was researching Czech religious history, and he said, "Why do you want to study Czech religious history? Don't you know that all of the Czechs are atheists?" And so this was a question put to me at an academic meeting, and his dismissal of religion as a serious subject of inquiry held a kernel of truth. The historical literature on the Czech lands in the modern period, published on both sides of the Atlantic, has largely overlooked religion. Specifically, why this oversight? The scholar was onto something. The blue bar here on the left shows, in response to the question of surveyors, do you believe in God? Only about 30% of Czechs, both in 1991 and 1999, profess belief in God. And here are, from the same study, the numbers of people who attend religious services once a month or more often. So down around only about 10% of the population in the Czech Republic actively participates in religion. According to other surveys, including census data, social scientific survey, some 40 to 60% of Czechs declare themselves as atheists. So, why study religion as a facet of Czech social and cultural history when it is apparently of negligible importance today? Moreover, study of religion in modern Czech history is smothered by a standard narrative that suggests an inevitable process of secularization. Anti-Catholic and anti-Habsburg nationalism in the 19th century and the social effects of urbanization and industrialization all combined to turn the Czechs away from the predominant religion, Roman Catholicism. And really, most Czechs had little allegiance to the church all along. I once asked another Czech scholar, a respected scholar of religion, for his interpretation of Czech secularization. He recited the creedal statement of the conventional narrative. It all goes back to 1620 and the Battle of White Mountain, meaning the defeat of the Bohemian Protestant nobility by the Austrians and the subsequent re-Catholicization of the Czech lands. So whatever the starting point, the end point is the same. By the time of the communist takeover in 1948, most Czechs, although still declaring themselves Catholics, had only a nominal affiliation to the church. A historian, however, should take issue with this conventional narrative. And in this study, I follow upon the work of historians of religion in Western Europe who have questioned the narrative of inexorable secularization of European society, beginning in the late 18th and 19th centuries. These historians argue, in the cases of Britain, France, and the Low Countries, that Christian affiliations and practices continued to have an important place in social and cultural life well into the mid-20th century. But this historical question, the decline of religion, has been researched and discussed with little attention to Central and Eastern Europe, and with little input from scholars of that region. Specialists in East European studies, writing in English, for the most part have overlooked religion as an element of the region's social and cultural history. Similarly, scholars of religious history have rarely included the lands beyond the Oder and the Alps in their discussions of European Christianity. For example, in a recent forum on the historiography of Christianity in modern Europe, published in the journal Church History, Europe was limited to Britain, France, and Germany. There are a few exceptions. Historians of Eastern Europe have addressed the role of Christian institutions in the construction of national identities and the building of nation-states, and social scientists in religious studies have discussed the role of the churches in challenging communism, principally the Catholic Church in Poland, as an example of Christianity moving into the public sphere. These lines of research have been useful. However, they are also lacking in depth and context. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the Christian churches of Eastern Europe had a far greater and more complex impact on politics, society, and culture simply than in the sphere of nation building. And during the communist era, the situation of churches in the Soviet bloc varied widely, country to country, even region to region, and was influenced by more than their relationship to the party state. Individual personalities, theological debates, larger cultural and social trends in Europe, and internal divisions, policies, and missteps were all factors in the church's post-war history.